Hey everyone, welcome to our small footprint. My name is Nyssa, and if you're new here, we are a large family living off-grid in Australia. We have just upgraded our pizza oven. So we have been using a baker stone box on top of a barbecue, and it's worked fantastically. I have a review for that a couple of years ago now. I'll see if I can remember to link that through. And it's just from Bunnings. It's like 80 bucks, and it just goes on top of the barbecue, and the barbecue heats the box, and then you cook the pizza in the box. And there's nothing wrong with it. You do have to run the entire barbecue, all burners on the barbecue, put the hood down on the barbecue to get it hot enough. That was something we discovered pretty early on. But other than that, it works perfectly fine. My biggest issue with it was that you couldn't fit two on my barbecue. I just have a 4-burner barbecue now, and it takes quite a while because it's a pizza box, but it's using the barbecue to do it. A lot of gas as well, because you're heating up a lot larger space than you actually need for just a pizza. So the barbecue is on its way out. We have had it for many years, and I think we bought it before we even moved off grid, to be honest. I'm pretty sure we bought it on like an Aldi sale just before we moved off grid with the plan of bringing it with us. And I did all my cooking on it, everything, because I didn't have an oven. So I've gone through a couple of gas ovens that just didn't last. And most recently I've got a commercial gas oven, which is working quite well for us, though it has its quirks, but it's lasting a lot better. But prior to that, in between any ovens that were working and weren't working, we used the barbecue to cook everything. I'll try and find a few photos in here to share of things cooked. So things had to be lifted up off the base. You couldn't cook directly on the surface of the barbecue because things would burn. But we used it like an oven with the lid down. But the problem is that our kitchen is outdoors, and whilst there's a roof of sorts, it's not particularly weatherproof. And bits and pieces of the barbecue have rusted out. Some of the deflectors for the flames are falling apart, and some of the rails are falling apart, and overall it's just not in very good condition, and we don't use it anymore other than for the pizza box. That's pretty much the only time we use it. I have very occasionally cooked on it, even with the new oven, because of the reflective temperature off the hood is sometimes good for things like my pork rind over potatoes and stuff, because the reflecting temperature off the steel hood onto the top of the rind works quite well. But in general, we just don't use it. So we want to get it out of the kitchen because it takes up a lot of room unnecessarily. And as we rearrange, we've got one of the support bars going up on the new kitchen roof. And as we slowly figure out the new kitchen space and all the rest of it, it's something that I wasn't going to include in my space. So because of that, I bought a new pizza oven. So I went looking. I was going to buy the Thermomix branded one, the Ovana, because I thought, well, then I can advertise it, and if anyone wants to buy one, I get 15% off, 15% commissions and things like that. But it's quite expensive. They had a 20% off sale recently, and that's when I was going to buy it, except that I didn't have the cash until a week into the sale or whatever, and they had sold out of the stock that they had obviously assigned for that sale. So I missed out on that one, and so I went looking to see what my other options were. And I looked at a bunch of different things, like I looked at the Go's Knees, and there's a few of them. I can't think of the name of one of the other ones off the top of my head, but a whole bunch of the different ones that are advertised as pizza ovens. I looked at the pellet ones, I looked at wood ones, I looked at a range of different things, and what I ended up buying was the Kegland Hizo, or Hizo, however you want to pronounce it. I'll put a photo of it in here, and I'll show it off later when we're using it. It was a really good price. It's a very pretty orange, and they sell the tools to go with it as well. And I watched a bunch of YouTube videos, and it had some really great reviews. So I decided to go with that one. This is not sponsored. This was purely research-based. I decided to grab this one. Now, the first time we used it was not great. We had a lot of pizzas catching on fire and a lot of burnt crusts and things like that. But the second time we used it, we did a bit more research, a bit more watching of videos, a bit more, that sort of thing, and figured out exactly what we need to do to make it work. And so we're going to share that with you because we're really happy with it now. We didn't know if we were going to be. That first time that I used it, it was a bit of a disaster. But now it's working really well. So we have had pizza like 3 or 4 times since we got it, because we're testing out getting it working, and you can never have too much pizza. So in saying that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make our pizza dough from scratch, and we're going to do a couple of different things. So I'm going to make the pizza dough for dinner for tonight. And because I made all that buttermilk chicken last night, we're going to use some of that on the pizza because that will be really tasty with some of the pepperoni. We still have plenty of pepperoni left from the hampers and things like that. So, and the chili crisp oil and all the yummy stuff. So we're going to do that for dinner tonight. But what I'm also going to do is make a second batch of dough, and we're going to try a couple of things. I want to try par baking some crusts with just a bit of sauce and a sprinkle of cheese on it, and then we can top it and finish cooking it and see how that goes. We'll freeze them and then top them, cook them and see how that works. But I also wouldn't mind trying freezing some dough pieces. I'm not going to do too many to start with because I'm just not sure how it's going to work, and I don't really have containers to put them in individually, and I'm a bit concerned about them sticking together before they freeze. Maybe I'm going to use some oiled baking paper. We're going to see how we go with that one. So we're going to do a few different things, but we're going to have pizza for dinner tonight, which is going to show off the oven, and then I will freeze some of the dough and freeze some of the par baked crusts, and we will check them out tomorrow and see how they went, and I'll add that onto this video as well. So this video will cross a couple of days so that we can try those couple of things out. But I'm also going to try and get this recipe up on the website before I get this video out. I'm going to try. So what we can do first is mix up the dough. So I use my KitchenAid to make my pizza dough, and I spent months and months making many variations of pizza dough when I was figuring out homemade pizzas, and this is it. I found this one, and Darryl said I'm not allowed to ever change it again because it just works so wonderfully. It has a great texture and it's really easy to handle, and I'm 100% happy with this dough, and I will not bother trying any others. The only thing I do differently is sometimes I add sourdough starter, which means I will reduce the flour and water components to do it sourdough, but I have to be doing it in advance long enough for it to proof. So if I'm doing it same day, I just do it yeasted. All right, so we're going to start off with some water, and I'm going to do 2 batches. Now, each of my batches ends up being about 2 kilos worth of dough, or 8 250 gram balls, or as we've found with the new pizza oven, we actually prefer doing them at about the 125 grams and having personal sized pizzas and multiples of if that's the case. It just seems to work better in the size of the pizza oven, though we could potentially try the larger pieces again now that we've figured out the way to use the oven better. Now I'm just using slightly warmed water, except that kettle went for a bit longer than I expected. All right, we've got 700 grams of tepid water here. The ambient temperature today isn't too bad, but I do like to start off with slightly warm water. It just makes everything move along a bit quicker. We're going to add some yeast, and we're going to add 10 to 20 grams of yeast depending on the temperature and your personal ambient temperature. We're going to add some oil. All right, we got 50 grams of oil, and then we're going to add about 20 grams of sugar, and this just helps the crust to brown, but also helps with the dough proofing. So we got about 20 grams of sugar in there. We're going to add salt, about 30 grams of salt. We're generous with the salt in this particular dough. And then we're going to add our bread flour, which is around about 1150 grams, which will bring us up to that 2 kilo mark. Alrighty, so we've got the 2 kilos in here. We're going to stick it on the KitchenAid. We're going to knead it for 5 minutes until it's relatively smooth. Then we'll transfer it to the container and we'll repeat the process. Alright, so I'm just going to grease the container a little bit to make it easier to get it out. And I'm just going to put both batches on top of each other in this container, because with pizza dough, you don't want to let it double. You want it to get it to like 1.5 times, because it's going to continue to proof in the fridge or freezer, wherever you're putting it, until it comes down to temperature. So you just brought it together into semi-smooth sort of a texture. It doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to shape it into balls and let it continue to proof anyway, so it doesn't matter that it's a little bit rough in this first stage. So we're just going to get it into the container, and then I'm just going to go through the process and make a second batch. So put this aside and I'll just do it again. All right, second batch done. We're just going to pop it on top of the other one, and then I'm just going to put it, the oven has been reheating pies for the kids for lunch, so it's warm area. So I'm just going to stick it on top of the oven for the moment, and we'll let it do its thing. And then we'll come back to it. There we go. Double batch. And we'll just let it proof. Alright, so I got a little sidetracked, and my dough has well and truly proofed, but it is fine. It is very forgiving, this dough. All right, so we've got this big tub here. I've got a container with some semolina in it, and this is what I normally use for putting my dough in the fridge in. So I'm going to have to decide what I want to do for the stuff that I want to try and put in the freezer, or whether I want to just try par baking and not freezing the dough. My scales, here they are, blind, they were sitting right there. All right, so what I'm going to do though is I'm going to scrape some of this out and we're going to start shaping some of it. Now, as I said, normally I would do 250 gram dough balls, but we found that the 250 gram was a bit too big for the new pizza oven. It took up a bit too much space, but at the same time we also weren't doing the method quite the right way. And now we have managed to do the method a little bit better. We might be okay to do the 250 gram balls, but the 125 gram balls would be good as like lunch size personal pizzas. So I might do some of both. I don't want to introduce too much flour to this dough because we want it to be fairly decent hydration because it'll puff up nicely in the pizza oven. So you don't want to introduce too much flour to this if you can avoid it. So I should have sprayed the mat before I put it down, and I'm just going to spray my hands a little bit, and we're just going to coil fold it a little bit. I'm making it look awkward because I put semolina on my mat before I did this, and I'm trying not to tip it everywhere because normally you just pick it up like that, and we're just going to coil fold it, and now it's not sticky, whereas before it was. All right, so we've just given some strength and tension to the dough. So now I'm just going to cut some off. This is 225, so 240, close enough. All right, and all I'm going to do is my normal. I'm going to bring all the dough to the middle and then create this bit of a skin on the ball here so that it can create some gases in the middle until such time as I roll it out for the pizza oven. And I'm just going to roll it generously in the semolina because the semolina will just add some crunch to the dough. And then I'm just going to keep on going. So 250 or thereabouts. Bring it all together, pinch it, and then we're just going to create that bit of tension on the surface, just like that. All right, so we've got about the 230, 240 mark, and this is going to be dinner tonight. So we're going to give the slightly larger size a go. And then I'm going to do the rest of them at about the 125, and we're going to try the par cooking and freezing, as well as some dough balls to go direct in the freezer. So first of all, I'm going to find a lid for this one and get it in the fridge so that it has time to rest before we do pizza for dinner tonight. All right, so they're in the fridge. Now I'm going to grab some more dough out. And we're going to do 125 gram balls. So we're just going to do the same thing. Bring it all into the middle, pinch, and turn into balls. And these will be sort of like personal size pizzas. Though it is amazing how much you can roll them out to. But they're end up a little bit thinner crust. Pros and cons, depends on how you like your pizza. All right, so I've got a whole bunch of small ones there that I'm going to try par baking, but I've also got a set here that I'm going to try in the freezer. So what I've done is I've got a piece of baking paper and I've created a lip in the middle of it. I'm going to sprinkle a little bit, actually I might spray with a bit of oil. And then sprinkle with a little bit of semolina onto that oil. And then I'm going to place these balls in there like that, but then I'm going to create a barrier as well between them and the next one, because my big thing is that when I stick it in the fridge, it all ends up sort of proofing into each other, which isn't an issue because I'm just pulling it apart fairly quickly to use. But if we're freezing them, we want them to freeze into individual balls. So what I'm doing is creating some little pockets for each piece of dough within the same container using the baking paper like this. And we will see if that works well enough. And then I'm just going to put the lid on these and stick these straight in the freezer. And we will check these out tomorrow and see how they've done. So we've ended up with the ones for tonight in the freezer, in the fridge. These ones that I'm going to stick in the fridge as well, and we're going to try par baking. And then these ones which we're going to try freezing. And we will see how they work. Regardless, we'll have good pizza for dinner, even if none of the other ones work quite the way I want them to. All right, so I've pulled the dough out for tonight's pizza, and now we need to get ready. I have a jar of pineapple pieces that I have canned. I have a jar of pizza sauce that has been canned. We're going to do some bacon into strips, some really nice fine strips for sprinkling on the top. Lamington has decided it is dinner time. That is her in the background. We're going to get the pepperoni out of the freezer. A little bit of bacon there. We have the buttermilk chicken from last night that I'm going to cut into some little strips. Alright, so some of the buttermilk chicken. We've got the pepperoni from the hamper still. And there's some anchovies in the fridge if someone wants anchovies. And then we've got, still have some of the little bocconcini as well as some standard grated pizza cheese. So we'll pull those out as well. And then we will go from there. So I have to move over the other side to prep the pizzas because we don't have a bench at the moment that is right for the pizza oven. So we'll set it up right here, and then I will have some footage of putting the pizza, shaping the pizza, and then we'll bring the camera back and we'll show the actual cooking of the pizza in the pizza oven. All right, we've got all our toppings sorted. Darryl has the pizza oven on and heating up. I'll show you that in a second. And I'm going to get the first pizza going. So what we want to do is we want to do the middle of the pizza, leaving some air in the outside edges. And we're going to just gently stretch the dough using the semolina on the board on the bench to allow you to sort of spin the dough and get it stretched, but so it still has this little bit of a pocket of air around the rim. Then we're going to move some of the, all right, we're going to move the semolina to the side because we don't want too much to go into the pizza oven because it will burn. We're going to use the pizza sauce and take it almost to the edge. And then we're just going to top it. So we've got pepperoni, which it was a great, I think we got these for $2 per bag or something, and got like 5 bags of pepperoni, which was really good. It's just been sitting in the freezer to use. We've got some of the buttermilk chicken strips, those little bits of crumb that are going to crunch up as the pizza cooks as well. Using the pizza oven, you definitely want to use pre-cooked toppings because it's just not in there long enough to cook, and you don't want to overload the pizza either because again it's just not in there long enough. So we've got a few little bits of pineapple from the canned pineapple, and then we're going to put just a sprinkle of cheese on top and a little sprinkle of bacon to crisp up on the top as well. Then we're just going to grab it and then we're going to take it over to the pizza oven. All right, so this is the pizza oven. What we've got is a thermal temperature gun, and we are looking to get 300 degrees in the middle, at the middle point of the stone. And then Darryl's going to turn it off completely, and he's going to launch the pizza into the middle, just like that. And then we just leave the pizza in the middle there. It's hard. I probably should have shined a light in here to show you what we're doing, but it's going to sit there in that top temperature for like 60 seconds until the back of the base starts puffing up. So we want the very back of the base to start puffing up, and that the bottom of the base to set. Even the front here is puffing up a little bit in the temperature, and then that base will set a bit, and then Darryl will be able to spin it. You want to make sure you leave it long enough for, otherwise if you get a little overzealous, then it sticks to the peel a little bit, and this is all the problems we were having. So the stone is at the 300, which is enough to be turned off and let the base of it seal, and then we spin it around. Obviously, neither of us are experts. We're still figuring this out. But there you go.
I'm pretty expert at this.
See that really nicely cooked crust just there? And that's where we're going to let the other side set as well, and then we'll turn the temperature back up to halfway. All right, so we got both sides set, so we're going to turn the pizza oven back on, down to just under halfway.
So the flames are hitting just the top, maybe a little bit down from that about there.
Yeah, so we want the flames at the back, but we don't want them riding over the front of the stone, because when they go over the front of the stone, they catch the base alight, is the problems we were having. Alrighty, and that's the first pizza done. So now we're going to cut that one up for one of the kids. We're going to turn the flame all the way back up to maximum, because it will reheat that pizza stone to set the next pizza. And there is one done for whichever child is first to eat today. And here we go. Mine's always the last one to be made. The dogs are going off their nuts because the neighbours have just arrived at their property, so you'll have to excuse it. So this is what ours looks like, perfectly cooked all the way through, nice and crusty. And then some lovely air in the crust. And then what we've been doing is using some of our chili crisp oil with all the nuts and the sesame seeds, and putting that crunch over the pizza as well, which is delicious. I haven't been using corn on my pizza lately. Anyone who's been around for a while knows that I really like corn on my pizza, but the kids went off it, and so I haven't been doing it. But this adds a similar sort of a crunch, which I really like. So that's how the pizza works. So I'll bring you back tomorrow and we'll par bake those small ones, and we'll see how we go. All right, it's the next day, and the dough has been in the fridge all night. So I pulled it out about 20 minutes ago, and we're going to par bake some of these. Then tomorrow I'm going to pull out the frozen ones and some of these that have been par baked and stuck in the freezer, and we'll compare the frozen dough to the par baked dough and see how it works now. So I'm going to do the same thing I did with it fresh. These are just the smaller size, and I probably should have done it yesterday rather than them sit in the fridge all night, but it should still be fine. So
in all your spare time,
or done it this morning or something. But anyway, so these are just the 125 grams for the personal size pizzas, because I thought that would be good for lunches and stuff. So I've got the pizza oven heating up to get to that 300 that we want it to heat up to. I'm just going to put a thin layer of pizza sauce and a tiny sprinkle of cheese on each pizza and cook them just like that, so that then when we go to recook them we can put some pepperoni or whatever and some fresh cheese on top. But this will just help to keep that center of the pizza from puffing up and give it a crust. So that's all I'm going to do. And then we will get this one in once the... Alright, so we've got this up at the 300. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab this one. I'm going to turn it off, throw it in the middle, give it 60 seconds, spin it, pull it out, par baked, put it aside to cool. That's the plan. And I might get a rack. I might get a rack to put them on so that they don't go soggy on the bottom as well. All right, so that was a minute in, a minute spun. So we've got all this puffing up on the edges and the middle through. Nothing's cooked completely through, but we've got that rise in it. So that's what I'm going to go for. Stick this on a tray, on a rack to cool, and then we'll stick them in the freezer and we will try cooking them from frozen tomorrow. Right, so we're on the last one. This is number 11. Which means that I will have one to bake tomorrow to do a comparison with, and then 2 sets of 5 for the kids to use for lunches, if that's what they want to do with them. So I've just got the pizza oven back to 300 for the last time, and we're going to par bake this one. Oh, I did that last one and I screwed it up. Of course, because I'm running the camera. That's the way it works, isn't it? Here's the other 10. So they're all par cooked. They've got the bases are sealed and the edges are puffy and the cheese is melted. And so now I'm just going to let them cool a little bit more. I'm going to put them in Ziploc bags, sets of 5 with a piece of baking paper between them. And we will see how they cook up like this. So, and then tomorrow we'll test out that frozen dough as well and compare. So we've got 11 of these, so we'll compare one of these to some of the frozen dough and see which I prefer. There we go, already done. So that's number 11, all done. And now, of course, it's dinner time. So now I have to do dinner. So I'll bring you back tomorrow. Right, so it is Sunday and we are going to test out a few things. I have a frozen base from the freezer, just ready to go. So I'm going to top that with some pepperoni, and I have the pizza oven preheating. So this one froze with a little bit of a curve on it, which is unfortunate, but that's fine. Just going to throw pepperoni, well-coated pepperoni, and a sprinkle more cheese on it, on the top. And we're just going to go super simple like that to test out these. We're just going to have pepperoni pizzas. So that's ready to go once the pizza oven is heated. And then the other thing that I got out is the frozen dough. Now I pulled this out of the freezer this morning before they went to church, and it's taken all day to get to this point. So I don't really see the point in frozen dough for us, because I could have made it and had it ready to go in that same amount of time. Other than potentially flavour, it's going to have proofed slowly over longer spans of time, which is important for like sourdough, but not so much for yeasted dough. But we're going to give it a go. So this is the frozen dough balls that have been out for a good, I want to say 6 hours. So we can do a comparison. So once the pizza oven is hot enough, I'm going to throw this in there and we can have a look at it, and then we're going to do some of the frozen balls. All right, that was the frozen one put in, mostly only with once the flame was turned out, and then just briefly afterwards as well. Obviously it doesn't have quite as much lift in the crusts having been frozen, but it'll just be we're going to try this one against one of the frozen dough balls and see what the difference is. Though I think that regardless, the frozen dough balls are the timeline is not right for me to be doing it. But we're going to give them a go because we did it. All right, so the dough is nice and elastic. It has proofed enough. We got lots of air in the dough, so I wouldn't want to leave it too much longer than this. Can you grab me a spoon for the pizza sauce, please? We've got the pizza oven preheating back up to that 300. And we're going to stick with simple, the same as the frozen one. A little sprinkle of cheese, some pepperoni, and a little sprinkle of cheese on top as well. And then we will compare the two of them. So, all right, so we've done the normal. We did the 60 seconds, no flame, spun 60 seconds, no flame, turn the flame on halfway, and then do it. And so yes, this one looks almost exactly the same as a freshly baked pizza. Just that proofing time. I may as well make the dough, though we'll try it and we'll see. There might be something about having that long ferment on the dough. If it was sourdough, as I said, the long ferment on the dough would change the taste and the texture of the dough a little bit. So we will give this one a try out of curiosity, and I'll make the rest of them because I froze them for that purpose. But yeah, I'll finish that up and I'll come back and I'll say what we thought about all of it. All right, so thoughts. The fresh pizza was always good, always good. The frozen one definitely has its flaws, but it's better than a bought frozen one, cheaper than a bought frozen one, and more convenient than a bought frozen one for us, and definitely very edible. The frozen dough, it definitely has a different texture. It's kind of soft and pillowy and almost spongy rather than chewy, like the same day or 24-hour dough. It's not unpleasant. It's quite nice. I just don't know if it's worth the effort. Maybe if I froze enough of them and then I wanted pizza that day, I pulled it out. And in summer, it would proof a lot quicker. Maybe I need to do some more experiments because in summer, it might do its proof out of the freezer only in like an hour and a half. And it's already pre-shaped and everything else, and I don't have to worry about doing that step. So maybe it would end up being more efficient in that sense. Or I'm not sure. Texture is really, really good though. Much better than the frozen par-baked bases, but I really like the idea of the par-baked bases for the kids to help themselves. So we will continue to do those, but I might have to do a bit more experimenting in different weather with the frozen dough balls because I didn't like, it took 6 hours for them to come up to temperature, and that just seemed excessive for waiting for something out of the freezer to then cook, spend the time to cook. But maybe that's just me. Don't know. So I'm going to cook some more up and but that was sort of the all-around experiment on it, and I will come back for one last chat about the pizza oven. All right, so my cluttered bench that has everything on it from all the pizza prep and nowhere to move because we've got the pizza oven here. So other than the fact that we badly need to find something that will fit the pizza oven, because at the moment none of our bench spaces are wide enough for it, I am completely happy with the pizza oven. For the price factor compared to a lot of others, it was really on par. It has worked wonderfully. We did have to do that troubleshooting initially, but that was on us. It was, having to do the research to make sure turning it off when we initially put the pizzas in there, because if we didn't do that, they would catch fire. So you have to do that process of you turn it off, throw it in there, get it to a seal, and then turn it back on onto sort of lowish and let it cook the rest of the way. The kids tried, we gave the kids some half each of the par-baked and the fresh, and they actually preferred the par-baked. They said it was crispier, crunchier, so they prefer the crunchier base. So that works well. Now, I think that with that though, the plan is that that's an easy dinner or lunch for the kids to prepare themselves. And I think with that, what I might do is buy a pizza stone for the oven, And all they do is they heat up the pizza stone and they stick all 5 pizzas in the oven all at once for 15 minutes and preheat and reheat them like that, because I don't think the effort of the pizza oven is really needed when the pizza oven's already done what we wanted it to do and created that lift initially in the base. But they were happy with them, and so that's great. So frozen bases, I'm a little torn on. I will try it again in some warmer weather. But the par-baked ones were a winner with the kids, so that's great. So I've got another set of things on my repertoire and the new pizza oven to share, and hope you enjoyed the video. And I will see you guys on the next one.